All right, so in this video, we're going to walk through some examples of building bar graphs in base R. And so to start with, we're going to enter some data. I have some percentages that correspond to some category values, and I've entered them in two different variables. So we have the numerical content, and we also have the list of categories in text form. So I'm going to enter those into my memory. So we're going to run that. And we're also going to run that. Now, it's important to double check to make sure that you have the same number of numerical values as you have for your category labels. In case you've missed typing any or anything like that, this won't work if the numbers are different. Now, when we make a bar plot, we're going to enter the percents category as the numerical variable. And the names we're going to enter as the ages. So names.argument will enter the ages as essentially the category labels. And then we're going to add an X label to say age groups and a Y label to say the percentages. And then we can add colors and border colors in order to change the look of our graph. Feel free to experiment with different color combinations. And we are going to add a title with the main attribute. This is 1950s population by age group. And so if we go ahead and run that, we get this box plot over here. Now, one thing that you may notice about this is that all of the age labels are not printed because they're very wide. This can be a problem if there's no order to the categories. But in this case, there is an order to the categories. And so it's probably possible to figure out what the category labels stand for that are missing, since they're going by every decade. But there are ways to change this so that you can, for instance, plot them vertically so that you can see more of the data. So another way that we can plot our bar graph is actually to plot it horizontally as another alternative. And so here I basically have the same setup, but now I'm going to change this attribute horizontal. That by default it's false, but you can specify it to be true. Basically everything else is the same here except for the colors. And if I run that, the bars will go in this direction. And if I add this one additional attribute down here, then I can get the category labels to go in the horizontal direction. Now you can see in this case, we have a different kind of problem here because now the category labels, you can see all of them except they're running over the axis titles. So again, there are some additional adjustments that you may need to make in order to make this display correctly in a way that is attractive. So again, we have the same sort of issue. If we add this attribute to our vertical bars, then it also overprints the axis title because they're very long. So this is some adjustment that you need to play around with if your category labels are very large or very long. Now, we can also, if we have pre-sorted data, we can also create stacked bar graphs or cluster graphs where we plot graphs next to each other. So here I'm going to enter some color values for my graph. I'm going to have months, that's essentially category layer 1, and I'm going to specify my category layer 2 to be 3 other values. So I have 3 subcategories and 5 sort of other major categories. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to enter my values as a matrix. So I'm going to list out all of the values. They do have to be in a particular order. So I have 3 rows and 5 columns. And so I should have, like, January will be these 3 for these 3 schools. And then these three will be for the next three, and so on. Or you would have to group them as 5 values, January through May, and then these ones, January through May for the next one, and then January through May for the next one. So you have to play around with this a little bit to see how you have to order the data, but order the data into a matrix. And so when we run this, we get a 3x5 matrix, and then we can construct a bar plot of our months and our source and our values. And so if we construct that, so this is total revenue, here's our months, and we can see our 3 colors are indicating the values that we have for each of those categories. And we can add a legend to that. You can specify location. Here it's in the top left, which is somewhat overprinting some of our values. You can also move this around, top right, middle, center, things like that. Again, depending on the graph that you have, you may need to experiment with where the best fit for your legend is. Now, another way that we can plot this is using the attribute beside equals true. And if we use beside equals true, instead of getting a stacked graph like this, we will get a cluster graph. So now all the bars are plotted, instead of on top of each other, they're plotted next to each other. And we could similarly add the legend again to specify what the colors are standing for. Now, another way that we can create data for a bar graph is if we just have a list of raw data like this. In this case, this is data on days of the week that people were eating out. And then we can use the table function to make a summary table of how many counts are in each day of the week. And so here we have, looks like nobody ate out on Tuesday, Friday, Monday, Saturday, Sunday, Thursday, and Wednesday. And then we can create a bar plot of that. Again, we have our title, our X lab, our Y lab. This shouldn't say age. This should say days. And then we are plotting our table of days. And so our bars are going to be equivalent to the height of the values in our table. Now, if you want to order this in some kind of sequence, then you'll have to do that separately from creating the bar graph. And then one last example is you can also create a table from a data frame. So if I load my empty cars data, I can create a table of my cylinder information. So we have 3 kinds of engine cylinders, 4, 6, and 8. And so I can create a table of that and then make a bar plot directly from that. Now, in this case, I didn't set any of the other pretty attributes that we can use to add axis labels and things, but creating this table of the data will count all of the values. And then from there, you can add any other additional attributes. So this will work the same as just entering information by hand. If you have it in a data frame, you can build a table and then construct a bar graph from that.